This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
How you doing, bro?
I'm all right, man. I've been better. I'm in day 6 of Buffalo, and I just want to go home.
Yeah, no, I was saying earlier this morning, there ain't enough money to pay me to do what you do, bro. There just isn't enough money. And from what I heard, that, Cameron Wolfe went there with some new style.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. Look at Cameron Wolfe getting dressed for Buffalo.
That was definitely me.
Huh?
Absolutely. As many layers.
But look how tight that shit looks. After she's done, it looks great. It doesn't look like you're wearing eight jackets. You know how when people put one jacket after another, you know what I'm saying?
It looks like you're super bulky, right?
But that's a great invention right there, dude. And by the way, why didn't you take that with you? Really? Seriously?
I don't know. I didn't know about it until now. I wore 6 layers yesterday. And she looks better than I did. Because I had to be warm. I'm not kidding. I didn't look like an Eskimo man. I didn't look super puffy, but I had 6 layers on for sure. Yeah. So.
Well, you're a slim guy, so it's hard to make you look. Yeah.
Well, another few days of Buffalo and trying to get some of these wings, I'm not going to be that slim anymore.
Yeah. Now, see, if I did it, I'd look like a freaking blimp, and I might float out of the damn stadium or something like that. So it's a whole different ballgame. So I had fun on social media with some conspiracy theory, just to, because we're in the age where all these idiots come up with conspiracy theories that none of them are true.
Mm-hmm.
And so follow me on this. Are you ready?
Yep.
Bobby Greer worked for Bill Belichick.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Greer is Chris Greer's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Belichick needs a team. Players and coaches love going to teams in the same division because they know the division.
Mm-hmm.
He needs a quarterback. They have a quarterback that kicks his ass every year, right? Yeah. So you start thinking about it. Dolphins need discipline. They're not a disciplined bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring in Belichick. I know he can't build an offense and he can't find an offensive staff, which would be the third coach that Tua would have to deal with dysfunction with offense. But my point is, right, you start thinking about all of this stuff, and there you go. Belichick to Miami. What do you think about that?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I don't know if I even really like it, to be honest. Here's what I would say.
Oh, by the way, he breaks Shula's record.
Oh, man.
In Miami.
Shula would be rolling over in his grave. Like
the Shula family would lose their minds.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there was how can I say this kindly? There was no love loss between Shula and Belichick. And so that would probably be the last thing that Shula would want to see. And the other thing about that is, like, I get it. There's always extremes, but given what the fan base and you and a lot of people took away from, like, firing Brian Flores, going back to another Patriot style coach would seem like going backwards. And even if it's the coach who created the system, you're getting the original. It's still the same thing that was the quote unquote issue before. And so I don't think that would be the route, even though that connection you pointed out is notable.
I mean, there's a lot of shit there that connects it. Like,
a
lot.
Absolutely. And Chris Greer came up as a Patriot scout.
He came up great. One more thing, he gets revenge on the Patriots and Kraft.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, there's so much shit in there. If you really just to have fun, this is what conspiracy theorists do. They put one and one thing together, and then they find common denominators. Oh my God, this is it, and then they run with it. It's kind of, look, I know McDaniel's not going anywhere. I know Tua's not going anywhere and all that stuff. So I'm trying to tell people, just move on from that, bro. Just stop with the stupidity. They're not going to make any kind of changes. Now, they do need to make McDaniel. Here's the question for you now, because I've been at this a long ass time. The nice guy can't become the disciplinarian. The disciplinarian cannot start becoming your friend.
Right.
That doesn't happen ever in football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer. I've covered every sport in the world. I've watched people fail the way they do things. If you fail being a dick and then you start thinking you can be their friend, it's over for you because you're a phony. If you're a nice guy and you're their friend, and now you got to try to be a dick, it's not going to ever fly either. So McDaniel needs to get discipline on his team, okay? Because they are an undisciplined bunch in many different ways. They make a lot of mental errors, from penalties to mistakes, constantly. How does he become a disciplinarian with his style of coaching? $1 million question that I don't even think you can answer because you're not a shrink, but go ahead and try.
Can we find that TNT wall? Where's the TNT wall that I was about to say what you want about Brian Flores, but his guys were disciplined. It's interesting because I've said this before, like no coach is perfect, right? And so with every style, you're going to have weaknesses, quote unquote. And because McDaniel has an uplifter, he's a positive, he's a confidence builder. I think naturally you have a more relaxed environment, which can be good for a lot of elements. But at the same time, it's when, and he's talked about it, but they have to realize it. When adversity strikes, when you're in those intense moments, when you're in those critical games, how do you respond? And I think he talks about it so much because he knows that's the biggest thing that he has to get through to his team, and it hasn't connected yet. They were once again very undisciplined as far as their communication, as far as their pre-snap issues against Kansas City. And it's a constant theme for 2 years, their operation, their communication. They're slow getting out of the huddle. They're slow getting to the line of scrimmage with all the motion.
By the way, did you caught Tua's press conference?
Yeah.
Towards the end, he's going, well, if we get plays in late on time still, we can't make the adjustments for protections. We can't change the play. So how is your quarterback at an advantage when your head coach doesn't even know what play to send in? And once he sends in the play, it's so late, Tua has to go with that play, and he can't make any changes because there isn't any time. That doesn't put your quarterback at a really, at an advantage whatsoever.
Yeah, so it's a complex scheme too, right? And it's complex in that there may be multiple motions in a given play that you have to call out, and it's going to be based on what you see in the defense. And if you're not getting to the line of scrimmage till 10 seconds left, it's not so much the penalties, right? Like I think everybody thinks about the organization and sloppiness as penalties. They actually weren't as bad penalty wise as they were last year. They improved in that department, but still I think there was a lot of chaos at the line of scrimmage, and that Tua wasn't able to fully control things. And then I'll tell you what, I talked to a lot of defensive coaches over the back end of the season, and they said they realized because of that operation being out of flow, they could be very late on showing their coverages, and Tua wouldn't be able to pick up on what they're doing, whether they're running a cover 2 or running a cover 6 or playing man. And when you do that, you eliminate a lot of the advantages that they're trying to do with their motions to disguise and to figure out what the defense is going to do, right? And so they've got to figure out a way, one, to get to the line of scrimmage quicker, and two, how to get that advantage back, because early in the season it was unstoppable. And then they play later in the season. I know people will say, oh, once they played the good teams. But I think it was more about the timing, like the period of time shift. Like, yes, they didn't play a lot of good teams in the first half of the season, but I felt like they were not able to adjust as defenses adjusted to their terminology, their scheme, their ability to do motion. And that to me is going to be a big challenge for them going into year 3. This is going to be a difficult offseason. Like, let's just keep it 100. I know as fan base, they're always going to be looking to move forward, but they're in a period where they may have to take a small step back as far as like on paper personnel because of their cap issues, because of the fact that they're going to have to pay a few players, right? And so on paper, I wouldn't be surprised if they start in April and this roster looks quote unquote worse talent rise. And that might just be a state of transition where they're going to have to trust younger players to play. Like, they're paying a lot of veterans a lot of money, And I think you're going to see a handful of guys gone, and they're going to have to trust. They're going to have to trust your Cam Smiths. You're going to have to trust those guys who they were not trusting previously to get significant snaps for this team to go about going forward. So I'm very eager to see what happens in year 3. McDaniel certainly has some things he needs to shore up as a coach. I think Fangio is going to get a few more guys that are fit for what he wants and scheme-wise. And, we'll see. But
what you think Fangio comes back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because they the way they made it sound yesterday in the press conference was, well, we're all going over the, that we're all still grieving in the process, and and then we'll talk to Fangio and the coaches and all that. He didn't make it sound like for sure. And if I look at Fangio, here's one thing I do look at Fangio. Do you think he enjoyed himself here? That he was comfortable here? And then was he comfortable with Mike McDaniel and watching the dysfunction on offense for 2 years in a row? He wasn't here last year, but I'm sure he heard of it, and then he sees it. And the offense is what failed this team a lot of times. I know the defense effed up in the Tennessee game, but overall the defense did enough in a lot of these games to help you out, and the offense is the one that failed. Plus, Phillips and Chubb are going to be out for a good portion of next year. And even when they come back, Phillips and Chubb will not be themselves in the 2024 season. And anybody expecting that is unfair to them. It's going to take them a year, probably to the 2025 season, for them to be fully healthy, to be themselves overall. Does Fangio really want this that badly? Are you convinced of that?
Well, he's getting a lot of money to want it badly for the next few years. But I will say this, it's probably tough for Fangio because his previous job was a head coach. And I think it's always tough for guys who become a head coach to go back to being a coordinator and fully accept not being in control of everything. Because I'm sure there are ways that Fangio probably feels like he would run the team differently. You talk about discipline. Fangio and McDaniel are completely different styles of coaches, right? McDaniel is a very extroverted, positive, kind of uplifting guy. Fangio is a very direct, and sometimes it could be like tell you to your face you're not doing it, you're not good type guy. And he's actually very quiet on the field. And so they're completely different styles of coaches. So I'm sure even if he privately says it in his head, there's probably times Fangio's like, what is this dude doing? Like, I wouldn't do it that way, right? But they're completely different styles. I don't think that makes a guy want to say, I'm done, I quit, I think that if what they're saying is true, which I have no reason not to believe it, that McDaniel is allowing Fangio essentially to be the head coach of the defense and isn't necessarily meddling in his business, like telling him what personnel to play, to blitz or not to blitz, to do this or not to do, then I don't really see why Fangio wouldn't come back and he may just want more say in, hey, Chris, I need to get a different run stuffing defensive tackle in there. Raekwon Davis is not doing it for me. I need a different run stuffing defensive tackle right there. Or I need to improve play at safety. I know we got Javon out there, but I need to go get another guy, whether it's a draft guy or free agent. Like those type things, I think maybe something Fangio may be more vocal with this offseason than previous. But to be honest, I actually like the fact that McDaniel and Fangio are completely different styles. I don't think it would work if you had a defensive coordinator that was like McDaniel, that was very positive. And I just think you can't have a whole happy team. Somebody's got to be the good cop, bad cop, so to speak. And not saying Fangio's the bad cop, but he's got the opposite personality, which I think is a good thing. They're just in a state of transition. Like I don't know the answer. There's not an easy route, which I think is why this is going to be such a difficult offseason for Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel. There's not a like in previous off seasons, you can say if this happens, the Dolphins are in great shape to be a contender. If this happens, like I think this past off season, we were like, hey, and honestly, we're probably wrong. If Tua stays healthy and they play good or better offense than they did last year, and the defense improves, this team should be a top contender, right? That was the sort of quote unquote. Tua stayed healthy all 17 games. The offense, although it collapsed at the end, was number 1 in total rankings. And the defense on paper was better. And so all three of those things happened, and they still did not take a step forward in the result of the season. And so at this point, they're like, man, we hit X, Y, and Z of our quote unquote goals, but it didn't change the result. What's next? And I don't really have a great answer given where they are with the salary cap in the current roster.
Although I'm of the thing that I think they'll have the flexibility because they're going to get rid of a lot of players.
Yeah, I imagine obviously Emmanuel Ogbah would be gone. I think there's a decent chance that you may have seen the last of Xavier Howard. But the problem with it, I will say with Xavier Howard, he has a lot of dead cap money on that contract. And so I bet you they try to come to him and see if they can restructure that deal, something that makes it team friendly for one more year so that they don't eat the cap money all this year. But, X has been underpaid and quote unquote overpaid and back and forth. I don't know if you can convince a guy like him to take a significant cut off his salary, but we'll see.
He's had 7 interceptions in 3 years since he had the 10.
Yeah.
He's been overpaid for a long time.
I don't think anybody's overpaid. I think you're paid what you're
well, that's fine. You can say one way, I'll go the other way and say he was over. See, since I was the one that said trade him now after the 10 interceptions, and
So you did say after the 10 interception year that he was underpaid, though, right?
Yeah.
And so we all kind of.
No, what I was complaining about is that every year he was complaining about money and holding out for money. And that was my problem, plus his injuries, plus his offseason problems. And that's why I said it'll never get better than it is right now after this 10 interception season.
That's fair. And he is getting older, and you can tell his play is not the top 5 corner play that it had been in previous years. I still think that he is a very good starting cornerback. He's probably just not in the elite top 5 category anymore. And your pay probably should represent that. But the issue I will say is because of how they've kind of kicked the can down the road for his contract, they are essentially like, if they get rid of him, it's like $20+ million in dead cap that'll just sit on their cap this year. And so, they'll figure it out, but that's not really a advantageous situation.
No, I know, but they have to pull the scab. And, unfortunately,
and I do think there's going to be some scabs pulled, which is why I said that it would not shock me if you're coming back and seeing this team after the draft in May and you're saying, man, the roster's worse than it was when we played our last game, quote unquote, looks like on paper, right?
I got a question for you about flexibility, and I'm not sure because I reached out to an agent friend of mine. I'm waiting for an answer. Maybe you know this answer. I didn't want to put you in an uncomfortable position because sometimes we don't have all the answers. We're not really agents and we don't know all the contract stuff. If you give Tua a new contract, it starts in 2025 because he's fifth year extension is 2024, correct? Right?
Typically, yes. It depends. Sometimes you can rip up the whole contract and start anew, but most teams do what you call an extension. And the extension leaves your current 2024 deal intact.
Okay, so
sometimes they'll do something like, hey, we'll move if he's, I don't know what the 5th year option's worth, maybe 25 million, 22, right? They could do something of like, hey, we're going to convert 21 of that 22.5 into a signing bonus. Okay. And so your base salary could be like 1.5 this year. So they adjust that part of the contract, but you don't lose that money. It just translates into making the signing bonus and guarantee, quote unquote, higher. That's something that's, possible.
You already answered my question. They're definitely giving him a long-term contract then, because if that's the only way to free up $21 million, because they can't do it now because he's only playing on that final year. Right. So you're not going to have any flexibility. Right. So they're going to sign Tua, and his agent knows that they need the money. So they've got him by the balls. So actually, Tua's deal is a done deal already, actually, because they need the $21 million. Because I don't think Wilkins comes back. Okay, I don't think there'll be a
big loss. That's a big loss.
Yeah, they got their full draft load. They'll draft another guy. And
Cam Smith?
Huh?
Another
What?
Cam Smith?
I don't know. Cam Smith might be a good player. It's just
He might, but we have no idea because he's not playing.
Hey, dude, I was around watching Pat Surtain lost his first year too. I've seen this. I don't give up on people in their first year. Okay. Omar and I went at it.
I'm not giving up on Cam Smith.
Omar and I went at it on Jay Ajayi. On his rookie year, he didn't play a lot, and then he had like a rib injury and a hamstring injury. And then towards the end, he played a couple games, and he actually looked all right. And I had that same kind of discussion with, he had a terrible rookie year. I'm like, dude, you can't give up on a kid after 1 year. And I knew about his knee. I knew all the scouts told me that guy's a one contract guy. Right. So, you know what I mean? But still, I said, you can't give up on him because young guys can get by for a while with those bad knees. After you get older, you can't deal with it anymore. But he came back and had a great year. So I'm not going to give up on Cam until I really see that he can't play. You know what I mean? And then
I won't give up on Cam either. In fact, it's the opposite. I wish we saw more of him this year. And I think that not seeing more of Cam Smith was a big mistake by the coaching staff because it puts you in a position of unknown going into 2024 season, right? Like we're talking about getting rid of X and what that can mean, right? X is say what you want about X and not being the 10 interception guy in the past. X has been, when he's healthy, a pretty reliable starting corner, you know? And so is Cam Smith a pretty reliable starting corner? We have no idea. We have nobody can say with certainty that Cam Smith, you put him in there, is a reliable corner. In fact, Vic Fangio just told you all season he'd rather have Ethan Bonner playing over Cam Smith, which if you trust anything about Vic Fangio should scare you. And so that to me is a big question mark. And if he's not the guy, then you got to go out there and find another corner. And that's got to be a premium pick. But what about left tackle? Because Teron Armstead could be done or on his last year. What about safety? What about defensive tackle? If you're getting rid of Christian Wilkins, you're going to need another defensive tackle in there. You talk about edge rushers. You got your top two edge rushers coming off multiple
the 21st pick could be a defensive tackle. It won't be a tight end because the Bowers kid is a top 10.
Right.
So, and there's no other tight end in the first round. So 21st is usually where some defensive tackles go. So I could see them taking a defensive tackle in that first round, and Christian Wilkins is out. I think Ogbah's gone. I think Christian Wilkins is gone. X is gone. There's going to be a lot of salary purge going on with this team, and that's why I think that they're going to have some flexibility. And then the Tua, you gave me my Tua answer. If they can rework that fifth year, for sure he's getting a long-term contract then because they need that $21 million. So Tua, and I'm sure we're going to have plenty of time to talk about this as the offseason goes on. I actually am not ready to have the Tua conversation because I'm going to talk about it for 6 months. But I will say this, and this is all I will say because I know people are going to have this conversation throughout the offseason. The top 8 quarterbacks in the league are making $45 million to $55 million a year. That is your range. There is no way in the world that Tua and his people are taking a deal that's less than $45 million a year, with notable guarantees. Yeah, and it's probably going to be higher. And so, and like you said, the point about the cap and knowing the Dolphins need to get under the cap, that's something that I promise you Tua and his reps know as well. Of course. So, you could say about how the season ended and you can't pay him and you can make him play his 5th-year option. That all sounds great on paper. Happen anymore.
We'll see what happens.
Dude, they're at 40 under, right? The Tua move gets them under 20 already at that point. You know what I mean? So once you let go of Ogbah, you've almost erased all 40. And that's why I'm saying that they're going to be able to get under the cap with no problem. And the Tua move, you answered my question already. If they can get 20 million out of that, they're going to do that. Guaranteed they will do it because they're signing a 5-year deal. So what they do is they tag on $4 million to each of those years, and that's it on the back end. That's how the game is played. Whatever, bro. It is what it is. So that's probably what's going to end up happening, when it's all said and done. So no Belichick for you then, right?
No. I like Bill. I think Bill's a heck of a coach.
That's great.
He's not going to be the Dolphins head coach.
It's crazy.
We'll end up. It sounds like he'll end up somewhere. Atlanta seems like there's some smoke there. To me, the Chargers seem like an excellent fit, but they're doing their homework with Harbaugh. We'll see. But I do think Belichick ends up somewhere. He wants to get Shula.
Thanos will have 8 heart attacks writing the checks he needs for Harbaugh and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that cheap bastard. Oh my God, he's going to flip out watching Harbaugh ask him for everything. That's a lot of money for a guy that doesn't even have his own stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, doggy. That's they have their history. You know what I'm saying? If I'm Harbaugh, I gotta get all that in writing from that cheap bastard, because I would not trust that guy as far as I can throw him. Arthur Blank will give you whatever you need. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If he goes to Washington, they'll give him whatever he needs. The Chargers, I don't trust that guy, dude. I just don't trust that guy. I don't know about that one. That one's weird. All right. Safe travels, my man. I appreciate you as always. We'll catch up later on in the week.
All right. Sounds good.
You got it. Follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe. We have unleashed the Wolf Pack.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.